Hello, and thank you for joining me today. Here are some of the images that I've taken out of my stash of magazines, and I'm trying to decide which ones I'm going to use today. It's December, and Christmas is only a few days away, and I've always found art journaling is a very good way of expressing what I'm feeling. So I've picked these images out for my stash. I can't use them all because obviously my page isn't large enough. But so this is what I'm thinking about, and I'm not quite sure which ones I'm going to use. I love his hand that's reaching up, and I also love this picture. It's a painting, I think, of kind of like a burst of color and sun and rising up from the earth. And since it's solstice, I think this is what I'm going to go with right here. This, I like the texture that's in that, and I might put that at the bottom and work around that. The only problem with this is it's got this dark piece on the back of it, and that would show through. So I'm not gonna use that. Okay, so I'm gonna go with these two pieces. Now I've taken this page that I'm working with. I work in my journal pages. I take a piece of watercolor and I fold it in half, and that way I keep working through them. And then when I have a bunch of them, I will bind them all together. I take the edges closed, just so that I don't get paint on the other pages, so it kind of protects it a little bit. So I think that's where we're gonna start. So that's the beginning process. The next thing I'll do is I have my big stash of pens here. These are easy to get. They sell them at the grocery store, at the drugstore. They're Pilot G207 pens. I don't know if you can see that or not. But that's what I use. And what I like about these is that they're not permanent. They're, water soluble. So I use these to write with on my pages. And what I write might be personal. And once we get going with this process, those words will not be seen. They'll either be covered over with the images, or the watercolor that I put on top will kind of obliterate it. But that's the next step that we're gonna do, is just start writing what we're thinking and feeling. Okay, so I've written some things down that these images make me think of. The sun is coming. I just love the sun. I love the sun in winter, actually. I love going outside when there's snow on the ground and the sun is bright and shining. And it's just the opposing feelings of the cold on the ground and the warmth in the air. So this is all just, my thoughts about this year coming to an end, and, the sun, the returning of the sun. Now, I'm going to take some water and just kind of spread that around on here because it's going to dilute this. What's going to happen is some of these colors are going to kind of turn muddy because blue and orange make brown. And I've also got some red in there, but I'm diluting that just to get some color down on my page. And it's where I get my starting points too for what the colors are going to be and where I go from there. So I'll continue doing that, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, and I hit this with the dryer too to dry it up, otherwise I'd be here forever. So it didn't turn brown, which I'm happy to see. I think because of this dark burgundy color I used, that was more dominant over the rest of the stuff. So the next thing I'm going to do, this is filled with Mod Podge, the classic old Mod Podge that's been around, well, I think since the 70s, maybe even the 60s. And I'm going to spread that out with a brush and glue my clippings down. So when I glue, I try to go from one end to the other to paste it down. And another thing you can do if you want is if you have like an old gift card or something like that, you can use that to smooth it down, and it helps everything to lay a little bit flatter. That usually works really well. Plus the Mod Podge has got a lot of water in it, so it's going to make the paper buckle up, which is fine. I mean, I don't care about that. I think I'm going to put that on an angle like that. So, okay, so I'm going to make another round with the dryer, and I'll be back in a minute. So now that it's dry and I'm looking at it, I really love the way it's coming out so far. The blues are just like jumping up off the page, and I really love that. Often this is the point where I feel like I'm in limbo because I don't know what to do next. So I have to push past those feelings of just being where I am at this point. It's kind of like I'm stuck here. So I'm gonna think about this a little bit more. I'm feeling like I need some of this really bright blue, maybe around the edges or something. I also need to bring in maybe a solitary word someplace. So that's where I'm at with this now. But I do love the way this blue and this orange are working together. So let me think about it and I'll be back. Okay, I went looking through my stash of stencils, and I think this is the one I'm going to use. It's I don't know if you can see it. It's very geometric and mechanical, and I thought, you know, the precision of our solar system, the precision of the seasons, it's like we can always depend on them to always be there. So I want to use this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape it down, just tack it a little bit. I'll use some washi tape. I've got it right here, so I love washi tape. So I'm just going to tack it down, and I'm going to try to center it between the two pieces that I've got down already. And it's just mostly to keep it from moving. I'll do the other side too. And this is my palette of fluorescent and pearlized paint that I love. It's by Sakura, and I love it. It's nice and small and compact. And I'm just going to add some of it into my watercolor tray here. And also I have in here a little tiny bit of Mod Podge, so that way it'll be permanent once I put it down. I think I want it a little darker than that. Okay, I think that's good. So, and then I have this other cute little sponge thing, and I'm going to dab that into my ink. I call it ink, but it's not really ink, it's watercolor. And I'm just going to go around and dab that, not so much on top of where the paper is, but like the magazine things are, but mostly where the paper is. I'm just going to go around. I'll keep dabbing that. I don't want it to be too square, so I'm going to try to avoid the corners. So I just keep dabbing it and dabbing it. And it's funny, when you do this, it looks like it's not doing anything, but then when you take the stencil off, you'll see, oh wow, it really did do something. Get a little bit more color here. bit of that in the middle too. The blue is so, excuse me, the blue is so pale that I don't think it's gonna obstruct too much of what's in there. I do like those dots. Okay, I think that's good. I use up all the paint. I never throw paint away. If I have paint left over in my palette after doing a watercolor, I leave it because I can always find some use for it. Okay, so I'll just blot that off. You can get these at Michael's. I forget who they're by. I think maybe Ranger makes them. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm losing my voice. But there we go. So that did come out nicely. Just enough. Just put that off to the side. Yeah, I like that. So what's next, right? Okay. Okay, after I looked at it for a little while, I have this line here, and I want to continue that circle. So I put some more paint into my palette, and I'm just going to bring that around a little bit, which would actually be like outside the realm of where the stencil was, because it was a square stencil. So I'm just going to dot that and get those little lumps out of there. Because as it dries, I can add more to it. And I will. There, I like that shape better. It was too square before. Okay. That's good. That's good. Now I have to the side here, and you can't see them, but let me get a couple of colors here. These are watercolor brush pens, and they're pretty intense in color, but they're very water soluble, and I love them. Trying to decide what colors of blues to use here. Yeah, there's still that little bits of yellow in there too. That maybe I should try and capture some of that as well. I think it needs to be like a goldish yellow. There we go. Okay, we'll see how these go. So I'll just lay them there for now. So I'm going to start with some of the the pink. And I'm going to just go in and touch some of that up. And like I said, these are watercolor, so I can take my watercolor brush and do some things with that. I love it when colors bleed out. So that's what I'm going to do here, is encourage some bleeding. I use the side of my brush rather than just the tip. I can move more paint faster. See, and this is the place where when I start doing this kind of work, it's like a meditation. And so I start thinking about some of this stuff that I wrote underneath it. I'm going to flip this around because I'm left-handed. A meditation of some of the things that I wrote before I covered it all up. And I don't mind sharing those with you. You know, I just realized my head may be in the camera. Sorry about that. But thinking about solstice always makes me think of the new year coming and what's transpired over this past year. What am I happy to get away from? What am I happy to see an end come to? I think as with most of us, it's COVID. I'm so tired of having to be in seclusion. Although, I must admit that COVID is what got me back to doing art journaling. Because we were shut in, we couldn't go anywhere, we couldn't do anything. I'm going to bring a little bit more color in here. We were so confined. And I've always loved doing art, but I hadn't done anything for quite a while. So I got my watercolors out, and in January of 2020, I had promised myself I was going to get up every morning, and instead of writing in my journal every morning, I was going to start doing art journaling. And so that's where this all began. Again, I've done it before. How we start things and then let them go away. So I started doing that, and then I really enjoyed it. I'm so glad that I started it back up, because there's just something about this process that I don't know, I find it really comforting. And it takes me to a place that I wouldn't go otherwise. So here we are, and another full year. 2020, a full year of making art, and 2021, a full year of making art. I think this is going to be too muddy of a yellow. I'm going to get something a little bit brighter. I'm going to go back to that bright gold I had to begin with. So I love circles and, radiating things. So I love all this little stuff that's coming out here. And because it has Mod Podge on top, it's going to be a lot more receptive to taking paint. And again, I'm going to turn it so I can continue working with my dominant hand. Ooh, I'm liking it. Okay, I'm happy. This is looking good. A little shorter rays in there. So about using these images, they're out of magazines. I'm not selling this. This is part of my personal collection of art. So I don't worry about needing to copyright or credit, because it's not for sale. It's just for my own use. And you can do that if it's for your own use. But if you're going to sell it, you have to have permission to use that image. And it's only fair to the artist who did the work. I know I've got a couple of friends whose images that have been stolen and used in other artwork. And when I saw how it upset her so greatly, it really drove home even more the fact that we need to respect copyright. This stuff is not easy. It's I can't say it's not easy, because I love it, but it's time consuming. It's, for many people, it's part of their life, and we need to respect that. So as long as I'm doing this for my own purpose, it's okay. So I'm continuing with the direction of these little lines that were on this image here. Bringing in a little bit more yellow and a little bit more yellow. But I think you can see what I was saying about it being intimidating at some point. And then I start having so much fun, I have to decide, okay, when do I stop? So I'm liking that. I'm really liking that. So I've got this blue down in here. And I'm thinking, do I want to do anything with that? Maybe I should put the words like solstice or something like that in here. That might be good. So I think what I'm going to do, I haven't done this before, but I finally have a printer here in the studio. I think I'm going to go and look for some typefaces that are already installed, and I'm going to print out solstice right here. So, okay, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. So, there we are, solstice. I think that'll work. So I'm going to glue that right there. Put a little dab of glue. Now I have to be careful because this is an inkjet, and if I rub it too much, the ink is going to get transferred, and I don't want that. But I always like to seal things. So, where's my card? I'll tell you, this card has been the best thing. Like, here we go. That's it. Like, it bled, it moved a little bit, but not enough to worry about. So it's coming along and I'm liking it. Yes, bring back the sun. Makes me think of that Beatles song, Here Comes the Sun. So we're gonna let that dry, and then we're gonna do some mark making using markers, pens, what have you. But I love it that you can still see some of the words in the background. And I know what it says, and in my heart I know my intention behind it. So now every time I look at that, I'm gonna recall that. I'm gonna remember what this page is about.